All right, this is the last daily test that we're doing in engine principles. You know, the engine repair one thing, and this is the one you did your closed book thing on it. And so I basically wanted you to closed book your way through this thing. Imagine yourself sitting down to take an ASE test, and you got to answer 50 questions off the top of your head with no notes. You know, when I went to take that ASE test the other day over there at that Prometric Test Center in Dothan, they made me empty my pockets. Everything had to come out of my pockets. Everything. My watch had to come off. This armband had to come off. My camera had to come off, obviously, because I didn't want you to have a camera. But anyway, and furthermore, he ran a metal detector all over me before I ever went in the room to take the test.
Serious?
Uh-huh. They're serious. They're dead serious about that. They don't want nobody cheating, and I don't want to cheat anyway. But I wanted to take a little piece of candy I had in there in case, you know, I'd get you brain power going again if you get a little foggy headed. Well, let me take that in there. He may put in the thing.
Why?
Just he was hard headed, boy, that guy. But the fact was, he was holding the cards. He was the guy running the show.
Yeah.
So he took him in there, sit down on the computer. It's pretty cool because when you're through, you know instantly he prints your results. As soon as you get through, you walk away with the results. Oh yeah, I passed all of them.
That was stupid one. Yeah.
Well, I passed. I mean, there was three. The third one I took was the new one on light vehicle diesel, and there were some crazy questions on that one, and I didn't really know where they were coming from, but I still. And what was odd about that? There were 60 questions, but they only graded 50 of them or something. I don't know which ones or something, but anyway, but I made 84 on that one. But that was the other ones. I missed one question on each one. I usually miss one question. It's usually because of a poorly written question, I guess, or something. Either, you know, it's a foregone conclusion that I knew more than they did, so I couldn't have missed the question actually. You know. No, I'm kidding. All right, anyway, let's start with this engine repair. Yep. The measure of how much the air-fuel mixture is compressed during the compression stroke is the what?
Compression ratio.
The compression ratio. Everybody got that one? You good with that? You happy with it? You like that? All right. Well, let's move down to the next one. The cylinders, pistons, and crankshaft. Now, mark them wrong if they're wrong now. We don't have no buddy system over here. Hey, mine's wrong, but don't mark it wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Mark the right answer.
Yeah. The cylinders, pistons, and crankshaft are all located where?
The block.
And number 2, that's the engine block. This is not hard stuff now. This is engine principles, okay? Not super duper gearhead engine repair guy. The air filter and the throttle body are parts of what?
Air induction.
The air induction system. See that? Fairly simple. The primary heat transfer device for the engine is the
radiator.
Okay, so that's a C, right? If the thermostat sticks closed, the radiator is the right answer. If the thermostat sticks closed, what happens? The engine will overheat if the thermostat sticks closed. To test a thermostat, what do you use?
I don't know. I put a coolant hydrometer.
That one sort of smacked you around, didn't it?
It's a hydrometer, isn't it?
How can you test a thermostat? What is a hydrometer?
I don't know. That's why I put that.
You just squeeze some water up in there and it floats and it tells you how much antifreeze is in it? That ain't going to test the thermostat. You know that ain't right. What's a refractometer for?
I don't know. I didn't know what that was either.
You never looked through that when I got there in the office? Look through it. It tells you. I need to show you that because you should already. Oh, you missed it one day while you were at work or where? You saw it. Chelsea, describe it.
It looks like a little telescope. You gotta look through it and you just drop the coolant on there and it tells you levels and all that kind of
Yeah, it's got where you've seen it, where the white and the blue come together.
Well, I've seen that
refractometer.
I've seen that. We done that last semester.
That's a refractometer. You gonna check your thermostat with that? No. All right. Pressure tester.
Ain't none of these are good answers.
Scan tool.
How?
Okay, check the scan tool for the actual coolant temperature, and then
the coolant temperature is going to go up, and you're going to watch it on the scan tool. Your gauge is not accurate enough for this, but on the scan tool, you're actually getting numbers: 126, 138, 142, and it's going to go up. And when the scan tool goes up to a certain temperature, when the thermostat opens, you'll see it drop. So you can tell when the thermostat opens because you'll see when the thermostat opens, the radiator lets cool water. Cool water comes in from the radiator.
She didn't
And actually,
Kill that bitch.
we're in the deep south, we have bugs, okay? But the radiator water that's coming in there that's been dumping its heat in the radiator, the thermostat pushes cool water into the engine block, and the engine coolant sensor picks that up, and you're going to see the coolant temperature drop when the thermostat opens. You're just going to see that. So your scan tool is the best answer for that question.
I thought we always
So
check them.
did anybody put D on number 6
Nope.
for the scan tool? Okay, everybody missed that one. Okay, so you shall surely die.
We will.
Yeah, all right.
Can't pass ASC.
The internal passages for coolant in the engine block and cylinder head critical for engine cooling are called water jackets. That's not a hard question. Number 8, the blank test evaluates individual cylinder performance by disabling one cylinder at a time and noting RPM drop.
Balance test.
That's a cylinder balance test. Number 8. Cylinder power balance, excuse me. And how would you do that manually?
Wanna do the formula?
Pull, either unplug an injector one at a time if you can get to them, or you unplug. Did you know that Fords back in even in the late 80s, you could the powertrain control module, which in back those days we called it the processor. We didn't have to change that until the mid 90s as far as what we called it. But whenever you got through with all of your codes that were flashed out, if you would slap the gas to the floor just briefly, it would go into a power balance test, and it would kill the cylinders one at a time and give you a code telling you which cylinder was misfiring.
Really?
Yep.
That's pretty.
Excuse me for the sneeze, but
Bless
it did not work that well.
you. Why not?
It just wasn't reliable. Now, what it would do if it was skipping on cylinder number 6, it would throw you a code 60. If it was skilling, which would be a 6 with nothing after it, blink, 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 throw you a flash. All right.
So it was just a little ahead of its time.
But anyway, there's always been a bunch of engineers trying to do that. Okay, let me ask you this. While we're at it, and this is a brief digression from our test, but if I was going to use a current ramp, like I'm going to hook up and I'm going to get a current ramping scope, right? Now we're going to take a scope, we're going to hook it to an amp clamp, and we're going to let it draw us a picture on the screen. All right, so if I let that current ramping draw us a picture on the screen, and I spin the engine over, can I get an idea of what the compression is that way?
You should be able to, yeah.
Or in other words, maybe a compression balance. I want to know which cylinder has low compression. Isn't the starter amperage is going to go up every time the piston's squeezing some air in it? And if there's one of them that doesn't go up as high as the rest of them, it's probably not going to be compressing as much air. So that's one. Let's think about that. You can use the scope for that kind of thing. And if you can trigger which one of them is number one, you'll know exactly which one has low compression by just looking at that scope.
Yeah.
Now I guarantee you, if you mention that to Michael, it'll be, yeah, man, I've done that. I mean, bam, every time. I know he's been there. A written or electronic record of the vehicle is known as a what?
Service history.
That's easy too. Service history. An uneven reading on the cranking vacuum test may indicate what?
Valve time isn't correct.
An erratic upslope on the secondary firing line means what?
What?
Huh?
Okay. An uneven reading of the cranking vacuum test may indicate, what did you say?
Valve time.
There's an air leak into one or more cylinders.
I actually got that right.
Yeah, that's a B.
Idiot.
Yeah. Too much clearance between the rocker arm and the valve stem causes what?
Valve train noise.
Valve train noise. That's number 11. Yeah. See, these questions are not hard. Everybody that's been through all of these chapters and everything should have been able to do that. The presence of what does not indicate an external engine oil leak.
Huh?
The presence of blank does not indicate an external engine leak.
Oh?
Where are you at?
12.
No, it's not.
No, that's not 12.
The cleaning process.
Oh, I see. I probably killed 12 so that we wouldn't have 3-page test. That's probably. I'm sorry. Well, let me ask you this. Let me give you the answers to that one. Since I actually deleted that question on my test, but not on yours, or I mean on your test, but not on mine. A, transmission and axle lubricants. B, engine oil. C, engine coolant. Or D, fuel.
Engine oil?
No. The presence of blank does not indicate an external engine leak. Obviously, if you're seeing transmission and axle lubricants, that's got nothing to do with the engine. That was the answer to that question. Yeah.
That don't make no sense.
Well, you got it wrong. Okay. The cleaning process is used for small parts such as valve springs, spring retainers, and valve keepers. What do you use for that?
I put that right before.
Huh? Vibratory. Vibratory. 14. Blank cleaning is used to clean pistons, valves, and connecting rods.
Shop.
What is it?
Shopping.
That's abrasive. That's kind of like you've got you see these cabinets that's got gloves that are built into the cabinet. They got windows.
Yeah.
And Brenda's over texting for some
Brandon,
strange
get off phone,
reason. All right, so
Rude.
yeah, tell her that you just got laughed at because you were sending her a texting class. All right, so you do that looking through your window, and you clean that stuff up. Then you open the back of the cabinet and you take it back out. Right.
That's abrasive clean?
Yeah, except the abrasive.
What does shop cleaning do?
It's basically that's something else. Basically, abrasive cleaner. You know.
What does shop cleaning do?
Yeah, shop cleaning. It's basically got a different kind of stuff.
But it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, not really. It's not the same thing because you got different stuff in there.
Don't it make the stuff stronger sometimes?
Yeah, it actually is supposed to make it's supposed to sort of, the shot is, yeah. It's sort of like, you know how when you bend a piece of wire, it gets hot and it gets hard? And it's kind of like that, it bangs on that. But there's some things that you don't want to, use shot on. You get where I'm going? All right. And in your book, by the way, you guys all need to, I don't want to spoon feed you that. Make sure that you read the difference between vibratory, thermal, abrasive, and shot cleaning. I'm going to do a whole lot of, and that's in your book. Every single one of these questions came out of your book, okay? Now, the following components must be installed in their original position.
I don't know. Lifters and push rods and rocket arms.
I just put all of the.
Yeah.
That's actually the right answer, but how many of us worry about lifters, push rods, and rocker arms? Most of us don't.
Who worries about temperature sensors and pressure sensors?
Well, if you put a pressure sensor where a temperature sensor was supposed to be, you're probably think about you're not doing well there. But I mean, you got to put those back where they're supposed to go. You can't put them backward. That was a funny question. Remove the valve train components before removing the cylinder head on what kind of an engine?
All of them.
Oh, 16 is going to be B.
Huh?
Overhead valve.
You put that two on the door, where it can too.
What do you have to pull out?
Time change and all that good stuff.
That's not valve components. In other words, now listen to this. What do you got? Now, hold on just a minute. Let's think about what we're talking about when we say valve train components. What is valve train?
Valve train is actual
Push rods, rocker arms. Okay, do you have to remove those? Like if you're going to pull a cylinder head off the Escort,
No.
you can pull a cylinder head off the Escort with all that stuff still in place, unless the rocker arms are in the way so you can't get to the head bolts. But if you can get to the head, huh? Yeah, if you can get to the head bolts, you can pull the cylinder head off without that, right? Hey, I'm sorry, Kathy, I didn't know you were standing there.
Is this what you want?
Yeah.
Does it run right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that works. Denatured alcohol. Denatured alcohol is not to be drunk. It is to be used to clean things.
Well, I'd never even heard of denatured alcohol.
Well, the alcohol that's not denatured will attack rubber. And they use it for paint thinner and stuff like that too.
Oh, okay.
Have you guys ever used any denatured alcohol to flush brakes? If you do, it works for that. But if you use it on a Chevy pickup that's got anti-lock brakes on it, it'll break a bunch of stuff loose that will foul up the ABS unit and cause the brakes to lock up and all that stuff. So
So you don't use it.
We'll try that too.
But we use it for other things in here. All right. And you put that in there. Well, just lay that out there. Well, put all that stuff in there in my office on that chair. Put the papers on my desk and just leave that sitting there. Papers on my desk and the cooler on the chair. All right. Now then, what number are we on? I'm lost. 16. So we actually are going to be there, overhead valve, if you want to get that one right. But if you didn't, if you put anything else, slap yourself. A metric micrometer reads in millimeters. The marks below the revolution line are in increments of what?
0.
Okay.
0.05. 0.05.
That's point. That's 0.5.
0.5.
Yeah, 0.5.
You got that wrong.
I thought it was 0.05. So it measures in half millimeters?
Well, the increments, the marks below the revolution line are in increments of half a millimeter.
I thought it measured smaller than that.
Yeah.
Pressure testing, dye penetrant inspection, and magnetic particle inspection are several ways to check for what?
Cracks on it.
Cracks in the head. There you go. The engine block must be inspected for all of the following except.
Flower plant. Potholes and ditches.
Incidentally, Wes, have you ever been over to Billy Pilcher's shop?
Yep.
Over there? That's a cool guy. He builds engine blocks from scratch.
From scratch. I'm talking engine block.
Yeah, great big engine blocks. Yeah, that is cool. That's a cool place. I mean, he knows his stuff over. Yeah. The measuring instrument used to measure a cylinder bore, crankshaft, main bore, or the large end of a connecting rod is the.
Outboard gauge.
It's going to be the large end of a connecting rod. That's pretty good, isn't it? What do you think? Everybody like that answer? Outboard gauge. Outboard gauge. An automotive machinist should perform which of the following tasks? Number 12. All of the above. He's going to repair cylinder head cracks. Did you know some of the ways they repair cylinder head cracks are just downright crazy? If you look in your book, huh?
Some jerry rig stuff.
Not really. I mean, it's a way that you would never think. If you got let me ask you this, and I'm going to do this right quick. Let's say that you got a crack in a block, and you don't want it to keep going. No, you don't want it to keep cracking. All right? You want it to stop cracking. How are you going to do that? You drill a hole right there and right there.
Wow, okay.
And the crack stops spreading.
That makes sense.
Huh?
Dang, I never thought of that before.
But now what they do here to fix these cracks is they drill a hole. They drill a hole, they put a plug, they drill a hole, they put a plug, they drill a hole, and they put overlapping pegs in there like that. And whenever they get through, it's all sealed up. And that's somewhat a dumb way to do that, but it works. And sometimes,
Seems like it's time consuming.
well, yeah, it is. That's what I'm talking about. It takes a long time, but I tell you something that's going away. People that know how to do automotive machine work are getting harder to find. You just can't, because those machines cost so daggone much money. You just about can't afford it. You know, and there's not a lot of people that really know and understand that like they used to. Now, one cool thing about the way Pilcher does is, like, you know what, when you bore cylinders, when you bore a cylinder and make it bigger, 30, 40, 60, whatever, most of them will put a device bolted onto the deck and bore it. He don't do that.
Yeah, he does.
He doesn't. Anyway, he does it. You ain't
That's
talked to
why
him
he does
lately.
ours.
You ain't talked to him lately. Now, he may have a machine to do that, but when he's doing it on something that's got to be really tight and exact, he actually has a machine that trues off the crank. In other words, he's got a way, you know, where the crank spins. He comes off of that boring and to line it up with the center of the crank.
Oh, yeah, well, he's got to do
Instead of bolting this thing on the head. See, a lot of them just, and I've seen them do it, where they just bolt this thing on the deck, and they use that. The deck is what they're truing it up to. He trues it up to the crank run, which is better than truing it up to the deck because it's more accurate. See what I'm saying? But I mean, in the grand scheme of things,
Another
you know.
a four-cylinder, he bolts that to the thing, to the top
Yeah.
of it. But I
Yeah.
mean, he bores it out just enough to where it's almost as big as the piston. Then he takes it off and does it by eye.
Yeah. You know, well, I use a Sunning hone, one of them kind you tighten out against the cylinder wall and keep tightening and boring. And I bored a Kohler 1-cylinder engine 30 thousandths like that myself with a drill. And I'm telling you, that takes a while. And this is a cast iron block. It's not aluminum. I just wear you down to frazzle. I done it though. I made it fit. I had that piston and everything. I had the ring. Gave a good ring out. Anyway, that was the only time I ever did that, and the only time I ever wanted to do that.
Yeah. You didn't want to do it when you did it, did you?
Well, I did it for a friend of mine. He just was, and I had time to do it at the place where I was working. Let's see.
How long did it take you to boil it out?
Gosh, it probably took me half a day. It was a bear. The valve stem height is a distance. I can't say that. I remember being there a very long time. Just it wasn't. It was. I did it all in one. I think in a morning or an afternoon or something. We ran out of work in the shop and everything. And at that particular shop, I was working on. It was feast and famine. I was working either on diesel trucks like Eddie does in there, or on lawnmowers because the guy sold both of them. You know, so I was either working on, small engines or huge engines, and there wasn't anything in between. All right, and we had no scan tools in those days, but let's see. Valve stem height is a distance between what?
All right.
The valve stem height is the distance between the valve spring seat and the tip of the valve stem. Now, if a machinist has machined the valve, the valve, it looks like this right here, right? A lot of times we don't think about this. This is the valve right here, right? And you're going to basically do your Joe Gearhead, 3-angle valve jobs are going to be on the seat. If we actually have ground the seat and we've ground the valve, the stem's going to be taller, isn't it? So we got to grind some off of here too to make all those clearances right. I mean, a lot of times we don't even think about that kind of stuff. Tell you something else that has to happen. If you might have dealt with this, Wes, as much engine stuff as you've done. Let's say that we've actually had to machine the cylinder heads on a V6 or a V8.
I've never done it.
Huh?
I've never messed with a V6 or a V8.
Yeah. All right, on a V6, yeah, your stuff's all been 4-cylinder stuff and all that wussy stuff. Okay. But anyway, these Vs, they have to correct for the angle. So they got to grind to correct the intake. So that it will seal. See what I mean? Because if the cylinder heads have changed, now the intake's got a big ground, so it will fit right if you go very far. Tell you something else. If you resurface the cylinder head like on a straight 6, and if it's got a timing belt on it, you got to put a shim in there.
Where?
For a couple of reasons. Between the doggone cylinder head and the block.
Wow.
Well, a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is if you grind very much off of it, you're going to have to, you've changed the compression. And that's not going to make it ping and all kinds of stuff. Secondly, your timing belt and everything is going to have different,
It's going to be
it's going to be a different spacing. So you don't want to have to find a smaller timing belt to keep it in time. So basically what you got to do is you got to put a shim. And you know how that shim works?
Where do you put the shim at?
It's cut just like the head gasket. And it's got enough, let's say if they cut 7 or 8 thousandths off that thing, if it'll allow that. Then they get a shim that's shaped just exactly like the head gasket, and you just put it on top of the block. And you don't put a gasket on both sides of it. You see what I'm saying? Or you put it right up. I'm trying to remember that. You either put it between the head and the gasket, or between the gasket and the block. I may be wrong about which side of the gasket it goes on, but it's going on one side, probably on the head side, because it's the smooth side that they just machined. And but we've done those here. We actually sent a machine. There was a machine shop here for a while, and he actually machined one, and he gave us a shim for it, and that worked real good. But all right, let me see here. Aluminum cylinder heads always use valve guides made of what?
bronze.
23 would be, what is that? What did you say it was? Typically going to be bronze. The cast iron ones, they've got it built into the head, but you get that. Sometimes they'll actually bore those out and put bronze one in there. My dad.
What's so good about bronze valve seal?
Well, you want to put something that's not too much harder than the aluminum against the head, because it'll just destroy it and all.
Well, what my dad used to do on those aluminum cylinder heads, that they had brass valve guys in Volkswagen Bug cylinder heads, and basically what he would do, and they fit in there pretty darn tight. A lot of those, when you put them in there, then you got to run a a reamer down through there to make them just the right size. You know, which always seemed to me like you got to size them just right with a special reamer. But my dad used to take, and what he would do is he'd take a 3/8 tap, and he would tap threads in the valve guide, and then he would screw a bolt into the thread that he tapped in there, and this was in the top of the valve guide, and he put a punch in there against the bolt that he had tapped in there and beat the valve guide out of the head, and then he would keep his replacement valve guides in the freezer.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, and then he would put them in there, and he would put something on them, and then bam, 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 knock them down in there and everything. Valve seat faces are machined at the correct angles with using a what?
Valve grinding machine.
Number C, valve machining tool. And a valve with too little margin. What is margin?
I don't know.
Come on.
That's
But she didn't circle it.
Then I,
All right, let's draw a cross section here. See this? You guys should know this.
Yeah.
See this right here?
that's the margin.
This is the margin.
The small part down the bottom.
Yeah, this part where it's straight, it's between there and there, that's the margin. If you grind them too much, that margin is liable to be too small. See what I'm saying? Make it too sharp on the edge.
What is
Okay.
it?
And so what it's going to do is can cause overheat. It can cause pre-ignition. It can cause it to fail. And how's it going to cause pre-ignition?
That thing, you get that piece of metal, it's too thin, it's too hot.
Very good, Sean. If it gets too hot, then you'll have the heat of that red hot piece of metal on the edge of that valve causing the gas to light off before the spark happens. See what I'm saying? It overheats, part of that same deal, and fail. You know, if it gets hot enough, it's just going to blister and blow a piece out of there. All of the above.
Hey,
Okay. Now then, tell me, how many? Each one of those was worth 4 points. Okay, so I need to know how everybody did on that.